We're back. We had a week off, but we're back with the Seattle Overload podcast, the Seahawks podcast that you are listening to right now. And we're going to have NFL draft grades. My AI thumbnail is a thing, so there you go. Great.
What was that, really, AI?
Yeah. Not all of it, funnily enough. The school classroom was.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels a bit dirty. Also, the Father Christmas / Santa Claus pre-mock draft one was also the backdrop was AI. Yeah,
I thought you were just using like templates and stuff.
What? I just got a template guy.
I don't know. Anyway,
right. Danny, I don't understand what does 420 time mean?
It means when you get under the influence of something, and then you forget what you're supposed to do. No, yeah. He's right.
Anyway, Danny, thank you for the kind words. Good to see everyone in the comments. Appreciate that. Appreciate your patience.
It's my fault for being late. My fault.
Yeah. Do you have a good reason?
No, it's not a good reason.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a preamble?
Well, yeah, really quick. Matty, have you seen Master and Commander? Don't tell me you haven't.
I didn't know you were going that way.
Have you seen the movie?
I have no idea. Is that one of these children's films?
Oh, please, God, Matty. Russell Crowe, 2003. It's literally about the Royal Navy.
Yeah, but like the thing is, I don't need to watch a film about that, you know?
I would just assume that any British person has seen that movie.
An American epic period war drama film.
But it's about the Royal Navy during the Napoleonic Wars.
Oh, okay. Maybe I should watch it.
You'd love it. It's a very rich film.
Is Horatio Nelson in it?
He is mentioned.
Oh.
He's mentioned.
Only a mention? Wow.
He's mentioned a couple of times. Well, he's very much it's really cool how they handle the mystique of him.
Right. He's like the god.
Right. But then part of Russell Crowe's character is he humanizes him through these like anecdotes, these conversations. And it almost like breaks down the aura of him to the younger officers who worship the guy. But then he brings it full circle when he kind of talks about like what made Nelson special, and it kind of reinvigorates their appreciation, but in a way that is more grounded. It's like, okay, he's not a god, he's a human being, but that's what makes him special, type of thing.
Okay.
It's a very rich film. Like it's not glorious in a way. There's
right, because the Royal Navy is a complicated thing if you're talking.
Right. So like there's the whole movie, like the ship is like a metaphor for England, and in some ways that is something that the crew embrace, because it's like it reminds them of home, right? But at the same time, you see kind of some of the dysfunction on the ship, and it's like the way that the hierarchy within there is kind of, there's some subtle commentary on class, especially you think about early 19th century Britain. And class warfare and everything, right? But then it's not all black and white. Look at
you learning about British history.
It's a very, very rich film. It's a really good rewatch value.
Fantastic. Okay, well, the way you've described it, I might have to watch it. I see Sookman in the comments saying that there's books too, Master and Commander books.
Yeah, they're based on the books. I want to read them.
Right. Too many naval terms that I didn't understand. Yeah, that does sound kind of prohibitive. Yeah.
Should be glossary. Okay, so what I wanted to ask you though, before we get into the actual show.
Okay, here we go. The big question.
Have you visited the HMS Victory?
I have.
Okay, how was that? Was that awesome?
It was cool. Well, I was quite young when I did it,
Yeah.
and then I've seen it since. But yeah, I was quite young when I did it, so I guess it's just like a big, wooden thing. You just imagine, you know, naval warfare would be pretty bad at like even in a modern time, but back then, like a cannonball just tearing through the hull of a ship while you're just sort of peeking through a hole trying to get
Yeah.
light your cannon, or I don't know. I don't know how these cannons work necessarily, but while you're trying to fire back at them, they're just awful. I
Awful.
mean,
And it's
hideous.
the cannonball isn't even what kills people. It's the cannon splintering the wood of
Right. I mean, is that shrapnel? Is wood shrapnel?
the wood becomes the shrapnel. Like
Yeah, and then not only do you not die like instantly, you die like probably with like all these splinters in you, and it probably takes a while, and then maybe some seawater gets in it, like just bad, really bad.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we're
That's what-
very well. I say we're our naval history has been very significant for us as an island,
right.
and
Right. Makes sense.
and 2/3 of the world as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Did you get to walk on the ship?
yeah.
That's sick. It's
Yeah, no,
probably
they were rebuilding it, I think, for quite a while.
yeah.
But yeah, I did before. I don't know what they've done since. Maybe tarted it up a bit, lick
You,
of
you,
paint.
right. You wonder how much of the original wood is still on it. It's becoming a ship at Theseus thing at that point.
You're like obsessed with 18th century wood.
Well, it's just the notion of like this is still I'm literally talking about like the ship at Theseus thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because to keep a ship up, you have to repair it, and it's like you look at it and then you see a piece of history, like a time capsule, but it's not necessarily the time capsule. But it's still the same ship. It's weird to think about.
Right.
Anyway.
It's actually a common question.
Yeah, about the victory.
About how much of it is original.
And it's
apparently not like they spent 45 million British pounds on restoring it because experts found the wood had turned to compost.
Interesting. And there's no other way to keep it afloat without tending to it, and that's what any ship would do. I mean, they would do that.
Yep. Yeah, I imagine most of it is not original because they did restore it. Seems in the 1950s as well.
Yeah, it's like the real history of the ship is in the tradition of keeping it up than the actual object itself.
Wow. Do you want to buy a boat? I mean, you're in a better location boat-wise than I am. Well, actually, I could go down the Thames, but
yeah.
I
know your literal geographic distance to the coast is no different than mine.
That's crazy.
They're just scaling. You're a small island. We're a large continent.
Okay. Let's just leave it out. Okay.
Need to
get into a. I had something to say about that, but anyway.
Oh no, go ahead.
Go ahead. I forgot. I will hit it. One sec. Let me hit it. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where Griffin and I, after a week out, are going to give the Seahawks and John Schneider, President of Football Operations, their 2024 NFL draft grades, and also a review of some press conferences that have happened on the draft. John Boyle's just put up on Seahawks.com his Inside the War Room, even though it's not a war room, draft room. They were very keen to specify that article. So we've got some takeaways on that too. Griff, let's kick it off with how do you feel about the overall draft after a week out and with all the information we have since learned?
I feel good about it because I think the two top players you took are going to be impact players. And even if, somehow they don't turn out that way, there was still good process behind the picks. And if you can feel really good about your top two picks in a draft and considering what the rough hit rate is league wide, you take that and you're happy. So yeah, I've got nitpicks about how day 3 went, although the corners are pretty intriguing and we'll get into that. I preferred Johnny Newton over Byron Murphy, but my mindset was there are 2 first-round defensive tackles in this class. Get one of them. And then there's a list of like 3 or 4 elite guard prospects that are really tackles. And you can't get them and the elite defensive tackle. But then there's about 2 or 3 other true guards that are worthy of taking on day 2. And they got one of them in Christian Haynes. So it's like, okay, yeah, there are probably a handful of different combinations that you would have been happy with, but this is simply one of the combinations that I'd be happy with. If you told me, hey, you get Murphy and Haynes, regardless of how it happens, how do you feel about that? I'd be like, all right, yeah, sign me up. So that's that's how I generally view this draft. How about you?
I mean, yeah, it's tough to disagree with what you've said there. I think looking back at some of the mock drafts we did, wasn't there one which you were not keen on where we ended up taking, and I know some people in the chat weren't, but we ended up taking Haynes like early second round after a couple of trade downs. I think he was our first pick.
Yeah.
To get Haynes where they got him, and age has to be a factor. We don't know his precise medical records, but to get Haynes where they got him, to get Murphy, you can make the argument for the trade down, and we can look at that too when we actually dive into the specific grades. Is really impressive, and ultimately I think it just comes down to Tyrese Knight as a player is just it's not fair because they were never going to fix their linebacker issue in terms of losing a player of the caliber of Jordan Brooks, how strongly we feel about him. It's not fair to pin that all on ultimately, your 4th round linebacker. And if you'd swapped his name, Tyrese Knight, for someone we maybe were higher on, like a Jordan McGee who went a few picks later, then and one's more of a Mike type and one's more kind of just going to be a Will in the NFL type, so there's that to factor in too. But if you swap that around and then you think about how they ended up picking 8 times despite not having that second round pick, and I mean this John Boyle article seems to say that they had a couple of like 5th round picks or grades that they ended up getting in the 6th. Seems like they did about as good a job they could have done with the resources as they could have. And Knight was their linebacker guy, and they got their day 3 linebacker of their choice, which we'll see how he turns out. We could be absolutely off on him. It's going to be interesting to see it, but again, a positive in that they got kind of 2 big positions of need with their first day 2 and then day 3 picks. So cool.
Right.
Good for them.
Right.
So first up, Byron Murphy, the second. Griff, we've spoke about him in a lot of detail. Taking him. Let me get up this banner on it for a second. For audio listeners, we stream this live on YouTube. Bang. Does that work? I don't know if that works. It kind of works. It tells you we're talking about it. You also have the option to hold on. We can have it scroll across the bottom. Oh wow. Look at that. That's just magnificent, isn't it? Anyway.
That's real nice. That's fancy.
So an obvious pick. Now, some new information is John Boyle of Seahawks.com saying that there was 19 players with first-round grades on Seattle's board, and they were kind of waiting out Murphy. They apparently had a pick of all of their defensive players still available, obviously, actually, after how the first round went, but they'd already decided they were picking after 14, really, unless I think maybe Murphy had gone, but they'd already kind of decided because the team called up Schneider after pick 14 offering to trade, and Schneider was like, nah, we think we're going to pick. So I guess maybe Latu wasn't on there. I imagine medically, plus also just the fit and, the backlog of edges, that probably wasn't their guy. Again, Murphy was their highest graded defensive player. He was the guy they're kind of waiting out. You wonder about people like Terrion Arnold, Quinion Mitchell as maybe like the backup options, but it's clear Murphy was their dude. So that's really cool that they got him. Griff, any more to add?
I think the only other big what if is them deciding not to trade back. And I think they made the right choice not to trade back, because then you're talking about picking someone that probably isn't a first round talent. The only guy that would have made sense to me in the mid-20 range would have been like Graham Barton And I
Well,
would have been
Terrion Arnold did go pick 24, so
Arnold, yeah. Corner would have been, and there was a lot of pre-draft report about them being in on a DB, right? And I don't know if that was a smoke screen or if that was like information they were getting late that they were. It was just a contingency if Murphy wasn't there, because there's a real chance Murphy isn't there at 16. But then the next question is, well, if your trade back doesn't get you into the second round, then you're looking at the next shelf of D tackles go. And I don't think they're able to get Michael Hall. They definitely weren't able to get Aurora. He went too early, I thought.
35. Yeah, he went crazy early.
But so they would have been playing with fire in a trade back. So I think the right thing was to stay put. But
yeah. So is there any concern for you, because we haven't really broached this topic, and you guys will know how we feel about Murphy generally. We've spoke about him quite a bit, but kind of a new topic for us. Is there any concern about Murphy's production in college? The fact that he only had 5 sacks, the fact that even though his pressure percentage and stuff is pretty high, but he actually wasn't a full 3-down player in college. And as our friend Sean Clement of Sumo Sports highlighted, Texas faced 503 passing snaps, but Murphy played less than half of them. Meaning his sample size in particular, he benefited from a lot of kind of clear passing down, long passing down situations on that pressure percentage. So it's somewhat false in that sense, or inflated, the sample size. The sample's a bit dodgy. And is he actually a 3-down player when he's under 300 pounds? Even in college, even with his impressive technique, he's struggling at times in college to anchor against combos, even though he's got a way of doing it. Is there a concern, Griff, that actually you've drafted is there a concern about those things that I just spoke about?
I don't think there's an actual production concern if you extrapolate his stats out to a more full-time player, it looks pretty good. Like that's probably, he's looking at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sacks and then the pressure rates are there and stuff. The things I would say about that is more like, I didn't see effort issues personally. I just like some of his plays where he's getting uprooted. He has a lot of impressive plays against the run, right, where he's taking on doubles, but he's 300 pounds playing nose tackle. He's going to get, like, you're not drafting him to play nose tackle. You're drafting him to play 3 technique.
To me, it's the ones where at 3 tech he kind of gets knocked out a bit.
Okay. Well, then sure, right? He's squatty and explosive, and he has to win with those traits. He's not going to win the long game. He has to win the quick game. But still, I think his technique is still really good. It's just 300 pounds flat. 300 flat is only gives you what that does. So my concerns year 1 and maybe year 2 is just how does he meet his snap count getting eclipsed, his college snap count getting eclipsed in the NFL. Like eventually you want him to be a 700, 800 snap player. His production is going to go down on a rate basis in the NFL as those snaps climb. He's going to have to, but he'll catch back up. It'll just take a matter of time. As far as his actual play goes, as an A-gap rusher, because that's where they mostly played him.
Yeah,
he has his way of getting north and south. And right now in the college game, there's this very counterintuitive phenomenon going on where you think of classic nose tackle, T'Vondre Sweat, or Jordan Davis, they're playing 3 technique. And then you think, well, what's a classic 3 technique prospect as far as projecting them to the NFL? You think Jalen Carter, you think Byron Murphy. Well, they're playing 2I. They're playing nose tackle. So it's like the inverse of what you would think. Well, the college game is just different. There are reasons for that right now. But just because they did something in college doesn't mean they're going to do it in the NFL. So you're taking his sample of rushing the A-gap, rushing centers, or rushing the inside half of guards and trying to project it out. He's very good at that and learning the tricks of the trade there, the way that Jaron Reed was this past season as the second most productive pass rushing nose tackle in the league behind Dexter Lawrence. And he also has the traits to be really good at that as well. Byron Murphy does. But you're taking those 2 elements and betting that the traits definitely apply as a pass rushing 3 technique, right? But learning the tricks of the trade, the technique, that's where the learning curve is going to take place. So with Johnny Newton, day one, year one, Johnny Newton is way ahead of Murphy as a 3 technique pass rusher. When you have to rush the outside half, Murphy, he has the bend, he has the rip, the get off for it, but you can't always win with get off and a speed rip. You have to open it up with different footwork and stuff. So day one with Murphy, I have no doubt that his power will be there. I have no doubt that his inside counter, like counter rip or club swim into the backfield, will be there. But to maximize those two things, you have to prove to guards that you can press their outside half and get upfield on it. There just isn't enough data to say that he can yet. I have no doubt that he will get there because, again, he has every requisite trait to do those things. But the thing we'll be watching for in his rookie year is, okay, what's that development curve like? Because one, you need that production in isolation anyway, but then that will also make his bull rush more potent, his counter more potent, and he'll put together an entire rush plan. With Johnny Newton, like day one, he's ready. So there's a little bit, and it's not like Newton's ceiling is low either, but there's a little bit of a floor ceiling trade-off here between the two. So that's kind of
how. So all that to say, what grade are you giving this pick then?
I'll give it an A. I mean, he was one of the 3 or 4 best defensive prospects in the draft. So, and you got him. It's like cool, He also doesn't have injury concerns. So.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Latu, Newton, they certainly did. Right. Yeah, I'm going to agree with your A grade, and I just like how they didn't get too cute. Like when Fashanu was taken at 11 by the Jets, apparently the Seahawks had 4 offers to trade back, which Schneider described as good ones too. After the Fashanu pick, a team was offering a pretty nice haul in 2025, a pretty significant move back though, which would have resulted in less draft capital this year. After Bo Nix was taken, Seattle was cheering because their top target still available, which was Murphy. And after pick 14 or maybe 13, after pick 12, a team in the 20s offered multiple 2025 picks to move up to 16, but no day 2 picks in this year's draft. So sounds like they had all types of, that must have been very asset rich the following season, but they had all types of offers. And I like how it had been very easy for them to try and, maybe get Fatanu, who is obviously fell a bit maybe with the knee concern. He went pick 20, and then possibly get, Michael Hall or someone like that who, he went a bit later than maybe we were anticipating at 54, given where Rook went as well. But yeah, it's just too cute. Like you can't draft like that. Just take the best player on your board. You had 19 first-round grades. Well, at 16, you're probably thinking. I mean, Bo Nix probably didn't have a first-round grade from Seattle, but you're probably thinking, well, we should probably just take the best player here. So, yeah, I think giving that anything other than an A, even with there's no perfect prospect, right? Or maybe there is, but at 16 there isn't, or there shouldn't be.
Right.
There's always going to be concerns, but focusing on what he can do, what he can bring to Seattle, as a good scout should do, is pretty exciting. I also am really interested to see how, or if Seattle can get more than 2 of their defensive tackles on the field, more than, say, 21% of the snaps, which is how much McDonald ran base last year, and so how much 3 of those guys played. Because in theory, he's spoken about the multiplicity and the versatility that those guys offer. Yeah. I'm intrigued in, if Murphy's really good, does he just bench Reed and play more 2 I knows, Jaron Reed, or are they going to play some nickel bear where you get 5 guys down? Right. Are you going to play Reed as like a nickel edge player to a tight end? And they've got options.
If you think about a 4-down world only, there are 2 defensive tackle spots, so that's 2,000 snaps to divide between your rotation. Mm-hmm. So that's not Leonard. You have too much invested in Leonard Williams. You have too much invested.
Well, and we haven't even talked about Draymond Jones, who in theory is a 3 tech.
So you've got 4 prominent interior guys. That's only 500. So in a 4-down world. So obviously one way you resolve that is, well, you play Draymond Jones at edge a little bit, but then you got to play something where you've got three 300-pounders on the field occasionally. So you're not going to play that much base, but that's one way to solve it. But do we see nickel bear, like you said? Do we see the penny package?
Does Mike McDonald learn from his run defense starting the season as a top 5 run defense and ending the second half of the season as 29th or 30th or 31st run defense?
Especially
by playing the same nickel even front.
Right, especially coming into the NFC West.
Right, exactly.
It merits really, I mean, again, with the personnel and the interior of the back seven, it merits being a 1 high pressure team for the run and pass.
And I think it's easy to play 3 high presentation as well on the back end and play like an odd front up front, you know.
There you go.
Interesting. Anyway, that's over analysis. Let's get into the Seahawks' next pick. And we had to wait, didn't we? We really did have to wait. Let me get my banner up here. So, out of UConn, guard Christian Haynes, round 3, pick 81. We knew picking at 16 was going to be tough. I did not know that Haynes would be there. Looking at what John Boyle said, and then we'd heard some rumblings about Cooper Beebe from Kansas State maybe being a player Seattle liked. Boyle's article confirming that, saying he was one of the 2 interior offensive linemen still high on Seattle's board. Beebe obviously went with the 73rd pick to the Dallas Cowboys, and they were sweating this one out. Steve Hutchinson told Schneider, I think he's going to be a really fucking good player. And then the Bears took Kieran Amagaji. And then there was 3 offensive linemen going in the past 5 picks. A run on lineman would be concerning for Seattle. And he just managed to last. And so they were all elated and relieved, because if they hadn't got him, I mean, if we just look at the draft, it would have been pretty rough. I don't know who it would have been. Obviously, it got nervy because the Colts traded up and took Gonsalves out of Pittsburgh, who Seattle, per the Boyle article, that wasn't their guy. Their guy was Haynes. Obviously, don't really need a tackle. Guard being a need probably pushes him up slightly as well. So, Griff, have you had the chance to watch more of Haynes?
Yeah, I did. I think I watched him against. Who did I watch him against? It was a more prominent team, a little more.
Good.
Was it? It was Tennessee. Yeah, it was Tennessee.
Which was a big game Schneider mentioned as well.
Right, he's good. All right, let's get the fun stuff out of the way. In run blocking, he absolutely blows guys out of the water in zone blocking. I mean, he'll take 2 guys with him routinely. He can dig guys out at inside zone. He can reach guys in outside zone. I mean, he's got it all. I don't think Connecticut ran a lot of duo, but like he'll be really good at duo. I'm excited for him for both shotgun and under center and Greb's offense. Pass protection, he has so many different ways to stall a bull rush. One, he'll just stand up to you and just stop it. If he realizes he isn't stopping it, he's really adept at like angling it off and like angling it off early. It's like he has a really good sensor for when he knows he's not going to win the bull rush head on. And then he also has ways to get them get them on the ground, like to knock their hands down and get them like face first in the ground on the bull rush. So he has a lot of different tools to handle a lot of different kinds of power. And I feel like a rookie transitioning to the NFL, especially rookie guards that take on bull rushes well in college, they get a little surprised because NFL bull rushes hit harder. And so they have to adapt to it like Damian Lewis did. Damian Lewis had he didn't take on bull rush as well as rookie year, even though he did in college. And then he got pretty good at it year 2, year 3. I feel like Haynes will be able to handle the strength and power discrepancies of NFL 3 techniques because he has more than one way to stall a bull rush.
Yeah. For me, it's about, just continue from that point, for me, it's about how, and I don't necessarily think this is his fault, it's just difference between college, NFL, level of competition in college is a similar concern. But how does he handle speed and like wide rushing three techs?
Right.
And getting out there and being isolated on an island, maybe like when he's away from the slide, or if the front's making them go big on big, like how does he get out and stop getting cornered?
Right. I don't remember him getting cornered when he had late hands, when he had patient hands. That he had a lot of successful reps where he does punch early and he knows he can shut a rush down, but then when he loses, it's when the three technique is savvy to it and he gets cornered on because he's giving up his outside half. And I feel like it's more of a strategic choice on his end, and not lacking like the innate ability. So that's definitely something that I would agree is a relative weakness, is the high arcing outside rushes, and he just needs to be disciplined with it. Also, kind of a weird thing, it doesn't affect him, but he's kind of a high cut player.
Yeah,
he generates leverage anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be a problem. I think it's just so explosive and physical, and his hand placement's pretty damn good, and his angles are good. That the highness doesn't. I never saw it as an issue. I just kind of, it's just you observe it, right? And ultimately, what stands out to me is Mike McDonald afterwards saying, "I like the guys that knock them off the ball." When asked about pass blockers or run blockers, and he said, "I think Christian brings that to the table. That's the first thing I'm looking for." And then when McDonald's on the phone to him, he asks him, "Come in here and we'll go smashing people. That sound good. That's what you do best, right?" Like this is their type of offensive lineman. Brandon Thorne, I've mentioned this before, but the NFL, the offensive line expert at Brandon Thorne NFL, he writes an article for Bleacher Report calling Christian Haynes the best finisher in the draft. He gets scrappy at the Senior Bowl, and he steps up to that level of competition. Like, he was one of the best linemen at the Senior Bowl, having watched that back now, properly looking at the offensive line. He was largely flawless. So to step up to that level of comp when you've played at UConn is big. I can't really work out why he fell the way he did, other than maybe the level of comp. But 49 consecutive starts at right guard, smart, tough, reliable, like John Schneider said. And Connecticut ran kind of a diverse run game. I think it's more zone, but they pulled, they did gap stuff, they did a bit of everything. Yeah. Again, that appeals to what Ryan Grubb's going to want to do, and half up front, they're going to want to have a multi-layered run game. So maybe it's just because he's an old, or he's not the craziest tester. But I mean, it's like where we're talking about this type of pick. I mean, he was the 144th out of 1,583 offensive guards in RAS, relative athletic score, albeit without the agility testing, and he's long and big. It's interesting to me where he went.
I think it's because so many tackles are being taken and they're going to be converted to guard, and I think that pushed the true guards down.
Right.
I don't think all those guys will be better than Beebe and Haynes, though. I do wonder about Isaiah Adams, who went before him. But like of pure guards, he was the fourth guard taken? Haynes, Beebe, Isaiah Adams, and then Jackson Powers Johnson, depending on how the Raiders choose to use him.
Right. Because Frazier's a center, right? What about Barton?
I mean, I would play him at guard if he was a Seahawk, right? But I don't know what the Bucks will do with him.
Yeah. Isaiah Adams went before him, Griff.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That is slightly surprising to me, yeah, because he had a rough Senior Bowl.
That might be a reach.
To the Cardinals. Anyway. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm going to have to give this one an A, I think.
It's a great value pick. It's a good player and good value. He was a second-round prospect to me. Had it not been a tackle-rich draft, he probably goes in the second, and then whoever takes him in the second, they probably get panned for it because they say it's bad value. So it's only because there were so many tackle guard converts that he went where draft value purists, and I understand their angle, would celebrate this pick. So, I mean, yeah, it's great all around, I think.
Fantastic. Right then. So after that, Seattle was scheduled to pick at round 4, pick 102. But instead, and I got this, I needed you there, Griff, because I got this it completely blew my mind what was happening. I got it completely wrong. Anyway, but now we can review the trade they did with Denver. So they traded back, sending pick 102, as well as their 7th rounder, pick 235, in exchange for a later 4th round pick 121, as well as 5th and 6th round picks, so pick 136 and pick 207. So what that meant was Seattle lost their 102 pick and instead next picked a pick 118, where they got the inside linebacker that we were thinking needs-wise. You've got to really sorted out your interior of your D-line. Wow, it looks good. Maybe almost overly rich at D-line, maybe a surplus. But anyway, you've got your guard, which you absolutely need with Damian Lewis leaving and Phil Haynes not being there anymore. And now inside backer is the move. And they did take an inside backer. However, it was Tyrese Knight, the linebacker from UTEP, who, Griff, you had an undrafted grade on in your at C-Mike Spin Move NFL 2024 draft rankings.
Yeah, I sure did.
So at this point in the podcast, as I forget the username, I should probably credit them. I did retweet them. But at this point in the podcast, this is where you would say you've been radicalized after watching the tape.
I can't say that happened this time. So,
oh dear,
I'm open to being wrong. I do think he is a little bit better than an undrafted free agent, though. Like ranking, like he's not a. My confusion though is that the theory of Knight, when you put together your pitch for him, you can put together a pitch for him, and like again, we're talking about a 4th round pick, day 3 pick. They're not planting their flag on this player, right, with this pick, right? Because if it doesn't work out, it's a 4th round pick. Who cares? But my thing though is that even after you
sounds like you care.
Even after you put together your pitch for him, though, whatever that pitch is, it fits like 4 other guys better that went after him. So it remains really weird. And then even before you get into, well, who could you have taken? It is a little tough seeing that after the trade back, Cedric Gray is available for them had they stayed. And Gray, even though like I liked Gray, I wasn't like in love with him the way I was other guys. I thought he was solid. I thought he was a 3rd or 4th rounder. Gray to me seemed very, very Ravens-esque. And I just felt like, I wonder, did they think he would fall, and were they internally upset about that? Things like that. So I don't know. I wonder about that. But as far as, Knight himself, I mean, the one thing I'll say is that he played in a scheme that is tough on the linebackers. Like, it's true. It is tough. It's easy to be wrong. It's really easy to be wrong in terms of what you're keying.
What type of scheme, Griff?
He was wrong often. So, I mean, they play good old-fashioned ball fits, not gap fits. So he doesn't have one gap. He has 2 gaps. And then not only does he have 2 gaps, he faces so much option offense, so much 2-back, even 3-back offense. The gaps are changing all over the place, in addition to also having 2 gaps that he's responsible for. So the 2 linebackers, the 2 second-level linebackers are responsible for 3 gaps. They like to disperse the responsibility. And so it's very easy to be wrong. And
there's some bubbles in the front, right, with it being so 4 down, which, again, McDonald, I don't know if he'll ball foot the linebackers all the time, but he does dabble with the same type of principles.
Right. So the charitable take is that, okay, he's wrong often, but he's in a scheme that's easy to be wrong often. But it's like at times he looks like a disaster out there. Like, just.
Well, the other thing is McDonald, when he's talking about him, and I'll talk about like the real positives that I saw. But he mentioned his ability to anticipate plays, and then I haven't got it right in front of me. And which dog is animated about this one, Griff?
That's Brady. He's very.
Brady knows ball.
Yeah, he agrees
Now,
with me finally.
now, Ali may not be agreeing here, but Brady knows ball. And what Brady's probably getting heated about is McDonald mentions his ability to anticipate plays and like read the game and find the ball. Now, my issue with that is, I mean, I don't know how much Mike McDonald's watched. It was interesting that John Schneider deferred to him as the linebacker guru, right? And maybe it was a McDonald influenced pick. He did coach linebackers in Baltimore. He clearly knows what he's looking for from the position. But to me, like, a lot of the stuff I'm saying, he's guessing and he's wrong. Like, Knight is wrong. So when you see him diagnose a play and make the play, you're like, wow, that looks good. And then you start thinking, or was he just really lucky there? Or, does it need more work? But then also, he's a 6th year player. He was at JUCO.
Yeah.
He's really old. So in terms of like how much more is he going to learn? And then a lot of the plays where he's filtering through the trash in that kind of weird defense, they're playing the backers at 3 yards. I mean, in the NFL, you're not playing at 3 yards. The other thing is he can't bend. He's very high up, and so he makes a ton of tackles. And I'll get to the positives because we need to focus on what players can do. I'll get to the positives in a second. But all of the tackles, he's like grasping people around the helmet. He's going to break his arm, and I hope he doesn't. But he's going to break his arm because he's clawing around the helmet. He's not sinking into contact.
No.
It's kind of scary. And then running out in space, he did not impress me as an athlete either. Now, he ran a 4.63 second 40, which is a okay time. It's not a disaster. He jumped mediocre, and he ran kind of average to poor short shuttles, slightly above average jumps. So he's just I don't really know. Well, let's talk about why it happened. Is he's kind of got that Mike body density, in that he is 233 pounds, 6 foot, so he's kind of dense, and he had a lot of tackles, and he has a willingness to hit, and he'll bring the boom in his kind of high up tackling style way. But everything else to me is he can prove me wrong, but in terms of the player, I mean, I watched him on stream, and it became a bit of a meme because it's just
So I mean, if you put together a cut up of him running around and just bringing guys down, right? And I'm sure McDonald was fed cut ups by the scouting staff and everything. I mean, he looks like an NFL player doing a lot of that, but it's like not to the degree that, again, like 5 other guys did or didn't. It's like he just doesn't stand out. Like, why take this guy in the 4th? He would have been there in the 5th or 6th round. But back to the pitch, though, when we talk about how rough the scheme was, and then you combine that with, the density that you liked, running around, like his ball tracking, when you're not talking about gaps, but you're literally talking about tracking ball carriers and taking angles to the ball, all those things. When you put him in an NFL scheme, it's like taking the weights off. It's like taking the donut off the baseball bat for people that played baseball growing up. It's like you're putting him in something that is theoretically easier, and then you can get him going. But we're talking about him as though like he's intended to be a starter. Like there may not be starter.
Well, his pursuit angles suck as well. Like he's over pursuing everything because he's too slow. So
he's not that fast. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like you can't talk about him.
He doesn't run like his football movement out in space. I don't want to be too disrespectful here, but his football movement out in space, it looks kind of awkward. He's not like a fluid type of mover or runner. Monjomo asking, the question is whether he's better than John Rattigan or Nick Ballore. I'm not so sure, but I'm keeping an eye on Patrick O'Connell right now.
I think O'Connell is such a fundamentally sound player, and he's not that slow either. He's like a 4.7 guy with good change of direction. I mean, you can do something with that. Okay, but like to put Knight in perspective, who was also a 4th-round player that like blows him out of the water as a prospect? Kevin Pierre-Louis. And KPL didn't move the needle for anyone. So
Hey, he ran fast.
he ran fast. I think he played well for a little bit there, but
Yeah, I thought he had like a 1-2 game thing.
well, a couple of seasons later down the road. But like, I just don't see it with Knight. And again, if we're proven wrong, like I was proven wrong about Jaron Reed, right? Like I was like, what are they doing? His Green Bay tape is terrible. And then he comes in and he's like the
Oh,
second
right. I was
best.
gonna say coming out of Alabama, that was like a cool guy. Right? Yeah.
No, I'm
Coming out
talking
of
about
the
Jaron Reed when
Packers.
they signed him, when they brought him back. And
Mark
then
II. Yeah.
he was great. I like Jaron Reed, the pick at the time, but
Yeah.
we're talking about last offseason. Jaron Reed came in and was awesome, and I was singing his praises. So if Knight wins the starting job, then we'll be singing his praises.
If he wins the starting job, they've done a heck of a job coaching.
Yeah.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Back to my comment though about when you said McDonald knows what he's doing with linebackers, about drafting and knows what he wants, and then I said, does he?
No. Maybe he knows.
He
I
absolutely
didn't say
knows.
he knows.
He absolutely knows the linebacker position, but what I'm saying is that he's not going to turn shit to gold, because that's not possible. You still have to.
Sorry,
if you
not that you're saying Knight is shit here.
No, I'm not. I'm just using this, like, you can't just give him anyone, like, oh, well, McDonald will coach him up. We're falling into the same trap that we did with Pete Carroll, where Pete Carroll will just turn any DB into a Pro Bowler. Like that's not possible. And if you look at, now you can get improved players, yes, right? But my point is, if we look at McDonald's history with linebackers in Baltimore, it's not exactly like a sterling record. They drafted let me pull it up here.
Yeah, when you pull that up as well, this is the other factor to this, is we are learning about what McDonald values in linebackers, and even though there's a similarity in the type of front Seattle ran last year to what they'll run this year the most of the time, and in previous years as well, and there's some similarities and crossover, I think what maybe the first things McDonald values might be slightly different to Seattle. Like, it's telling that the guy we liked was Jordan McGee, and that he went to Ken Norton Jr.'s linebacker room in Washington, where we're familiar with that scheme and the techniques there. But yeah, anyway, so McDonald's record with linebackers in Baltimore, Griff.
So now this is when he was the linebacker coach and the coordinator. And keep in mind, I'm not suggesting that he handpicked these guys. I'm not suggesting anything. But so the 4 linebackers drafted when he was there was Kenny Young, 2018, 4th round. Has anyone heard of Kenny Young? No. Patrick Queen.
Well, hang on now. Kenny Young?
Kenny Young.
No, I haven't.
No, you haven't. And where are you? What team is he even on right now?
XFL?
He's out of the league. Okay.
Yeah.
And he was a 4th round pick. Okay. So they took the 4th round pick and nothing happened. Patrick Queen, he comes back to Baltimore, or no, his last year in Baltimore, 2020, before leaving for Michigan. Patrick Queen, granted, Queen's a rookie, but Queen had a horrible rookie year. And then he comes back to Baltimore 2022. Queen is again bad until the Raquan trade. And then plays decently, like with a role that's crafted for him. He's a good player. Okay, but back to 2020, they also took Malik Harrison, 3rd round player, and he's a utility role player. He's basically a Sam. He's a 2-down Sam. And then Trenton Simpson, 2023, 3rd round. Trenton Simpson. Not his fault. He hasn't had the chance to play yet. So we don't know yet, right? The jury's out on him. We could see how he does in Baltimore, right? But I'm just saying, like, I'm not criticizing McDonald. But I'm just saying this idea that, like, you give McDonald anyone, like, based off of what happened in Baltimore, it took till year 4 with the 1st round pick for him to show anything. And they had to trade a 2nd round pick for a former 1st rounder in Roquan Smith to get the linebacker position in shape. So I look at what Seattle has: Tyrese Knight, 4th rounder, Tyrell Dodson, who's a 2-down, early down run thumper, and Jerome Baker, who's kind of had a roller coaster career, who's a nice player. I'm not looking at McDonald's track record and being super positive about linebacker. And that's not to criticize McDonald. I'm just simply saying, if you want to have good linebackers, you got to go find studs. Doesn't matter who's coaching them to an extent. You always need good coaching, but it's about synthesizing all the players you have and putting the scheme together for them. And I'm saying, like, they just don't have the ceiling level players in the interior of their back seven, that those middle five guys, to where you can craft a role for Baker to get everything out of him. I would feel way better about Baker if they had Brooks next to him, or if they took a flyer on one of these guys in the draft. If they were able to get Gray, I'd be like, okay, let's see what a 2-3 year relationship can look like with the pairing between Cedric Gray and Jerome Baker, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm still rooting for all of them. I still think McDonald will field a good defense. It's just, it's not, he's not just going to snap his fingers. Like, we might have a frustrating experience with the linebackers this year is all I'm saying. And maybe the safeties, but.
So on that subject as well about Gray, now I have no idea how his interview went with Seattle, but Knight, not only did McDonald praise his ability to sort of play, diagnose, make tackles, see the game quickly, which I'm less sure on, but he also praised how he was in the interview. So when we brought him in, we got to meet him and we just really liked the person and the competitor. His demeanor is soft-spoken right now, but I think he's a very clear communicator, and then just a guy throughout the process we've really started to like. So McDonald clearly a big fan of the intangible aspect as well. So another factor to this pick. And again, say what you want. We don't feel great about the player, just the tape. But it was their day 3 linebacker 1. So cool. Now, Drift, you've got to give it a grade.
I give it a D.
Yeah, I'll give it a D. All right, moving on. So we didn't have long to wait, because next up was AJ Barner, the tight end out of Michigan. And let me actually edit this properly. That came just 3 picks later at pick 121 in the 4th round. Griff, Barner.
I like it. I think he's a good blocking tight end. I think he actually has a little bit of wiggle at the top of the route. He is slow, but he's a fluid runner, and that shows up in his yards after the catch. But I think he can actually get a little bit of separation when running like square digs or square outs and stuff. Like the 3-cone, he had a good 3-cone that shows up. And then also he has good hands. He's kind of like Will Disley had good hands and was good at adjusting to the ball. Even if he's not elevating, he still can box out and smoothly adjust to the ball and get his body cranked around to it.
Mm-hmm.
Pronate his hands, supinate his hands when he needs to. I feel like Barner fits that role. So he's very much a quality. He's like a utility wide tight end. He can do a little bit of everything. So that means the scheme allows him to he affords the scheme some flexibility. Yeah.
And that wiggle also shows up in the kind of yards after catch, the rumbling, bumbling, stumbling stuff. McDonald said similar to what you've said, Griff, that he can block, run a pretty significant route tree as well. And also the special teams aspect, playing for Jay Harbaugh at Michigan, and the fact he can contribute on all aspects of the special teams. McDonald praised his run after the catch, said he's an underrated athlete, which he had an 8.58 relative athletic score, so he's getting up there. And then he mentioned the importance of the blocking tight ends and how the whole game for him starts in the C gap, and who's going to defend it and who's going to block it. So, yeah. And then also Barner mentioned he likes chipping up his helmet and getting physical, which Seattle's offense, they said they wanted to be physical, and they've drafted three offensive linemen, 2 of whom we haven't spoke about yet, and then this Barner guy who's a kind of what that allows Fant to do in the offense, the importance to Grubb of being able to move the tight ends around. We'd identified tight end as a need, perhaps, and to just, losing Will Disley, losing Colby Parkinson, cool. I'll give it a B.
Yeah, I'll give it a B for where he was taken and what he is. Like that's totally fine pick, and I'm down for it.
There we go. All right. So let me make sure I've got everything there. Right. Perfect. So next up, Nehemiah Pritchett, the corner out of Auburn, in round 5, pick 136. Now, interestingly, Griff, before I kick that over to you, so out of the John Boyle article, he revealed, one, that there was a more relaxed mood in day 3 compared to day 2, where they were sweating out Christian Haynes. Obviously, they were relaxed enough to do that little trade down that I spoke about. But then 2, he also mentioned how with the 5th round kind of winding down, the Seahawks still had a handful of players with 5th round grades on their board. So Pritchett was obviously the first of these 5th rounders, but these next few picks, something to keep in mind is that, I certainly think the first 2 6th round picks were maybe 5th round players in Seattle's grading. So interesting enough. But Pritchett was the first guy they took in the 5th round. Why do you think that was?
I think maybe prioritizing the outside body type archetype more, maybe. There might be some commentary on just how they view, just because it's a higher snap player, I would think. And maybe they valued the height and length as well, just in general. I think they really want to fortify the depth on the outside. I think they really want to push Tariq Woolen, and they want a really, ferocious competition there behind him. But then also Devin Witherspoon's going to be playing some nickel. So you want to make left corner to be as competitive as possible too, for that reason. So yeah. What are your takes there?
Yeah, I mean, Woolen needs to sort his career out. That may sound dramatic, but obviously a lot of things were not going well last year. He's coming off a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate, a season where some people would say he should have won that award, and then he completely regresses last year. Obviously, the year didn't start well for him with the injury, so he's not able to kind of refine the technique aspects of his game that he needed to. But then, he's checking out tackles. He gets benched as a way to try and motivate him. There's maybe some stuff going on behind the scenes. He just does not play to the level that he can. And so this 3rd year, he needs to be pushed hard. And watching Pritchett, like back at the Senior Bowl, he reminds me in some ways of like a Woolen light. Now, they're both 5th round picks. Obviously, Woolen comes from a small school. Pritchett comes from an SEC school, so the level of comp is there. But just the main thing with Pritchett is, he jumped bad. His agility testing's pretty poor. But his 40, he ran a 4.36 40. So he kind of brings that speed to it, and he's not as long as Woolen. He's 6 foot, under 32-inch arms. But just watching his game, like at the Senior Bowl, like he's raw technique-wise. He's getting badly beat. But when it comes to the 7-on-7 and like pass skelly stuff, and then the versus period where it's the whole offense, not just one-on-ones versus the defense, he's playing on the right side, and that's where Tariq Woolen plays, and he takes all of his snaps on the right side in that period, so kind of leads itself into that. And what also reminds me of the Woolen thing is the only times he looked really good in the one-on-ones, which again, Woolen had unrefined kind of technique, which needs kind of coaching up. Pritchett, I think, is a bit more advanced, but I mean, you can't just try and turn and run with the guys all the time. But where his stuff really showed up was in the red zone one-on-ones, which happens day 3 at the Senior Bowl, where suddenly you're kind of guessing what route. They're only going to run a certain amount of routes. Like, it's the Senior Bowl, it's one-on-one. You've got the goal line as well. And he's just eliminating routes, staying patient, and his style of kind of just waiting and sort of walling off the red zone and kind of guessing the routes correctly That was very much like how Woolen played the exact same thing at the Senior Bowl. And it doesn't really fly in the NFL necessarily, but it shows it shows like what he can be. And he was a wide receiver at one point in time, right?
Right.
So that kind of wide receiver convert element, again, like Rick Woolen, that makes sense. Obviously, Woolen doing that too. He was a high school wide receiver and safety, and yeah, I don't know if he played receiver at Auburn, but yeah, he's kind of just he gets by, and I imagine if you watch his tape as well, he gets by from kind of just the guessing of the routes and stuff. So, and you just got and the speed and the makeup speed to recover, and then the ball skills playing the football in the air. He had 8 touchdowns as a wide receiver at high school. So cool. Not exactly the same as playing wide receiver in college, but still there. And the other thing as well, as Monjombo mentions, his hard tackle against the Alabama quarterback scramble was one play, but it looked nothing like Woolen's done. Yeah, he's a physical player. Or at least he's not afraid to tackle, which is something he himself was keen to mention, Pritchett. He said how I think I'm really intense when it comes to hitting. I'm not going to shy away from contact. You can turn on the film and you can see I'm super aggressive. Most of the time, I just try to come up with a body part at corner. That's what he told reporters. Misfit asking, is he a mirror match guy or press man corner? He's more mirror match, step off, but whether that flies with Carl Scott, we'll have to see. Carl Scott. And
Baltimore and Seattle has had pretty similar philosophies at corner.
I think Pritchett needs to play a bit of coaching up in that area.
So it's great that Carl Scott's kind of like that liaison between the two worlds.
Yeah. Okay, so next pick. Here we go. Griff, you can pronounce this one properly for me.
DJ James. Or no, it's not who they took.
The Utah offensive guard tackle in round 6, pick set 179.
Sadaoa Laumea.
Thank you. So what do you think of Laumea?
So he was a right tackle who doesn't have foot speed, so put him at guard, right? He's a road grader. I have no doubt that he can block people in the run game in the NFL. If he can, because he has a tackle background, there's technique there that, I want to see that translate to guard. I think he has the play strength to play guard. He won't get upended. He won't have issues with anchor and leverage and stuff. I'm curious though if he can actually protect a guard. It's something that I'm gonna try to watch him really closely at tackle and see what reps kind of translate to guard, because a lot of them don't, right? Because
at the Senior Bowl, which not really a surprise here, but Knight, Laumea, Pritchett, DJ James, Christian Haynes, they were all at the Senior Bowl. Oh yeah, Misfit saying we didn't grade the Pritchett pick. We're so bad at this. What? Go on, give it a grade.
Give it a B-.
Yep, I agree. B-. Right. Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, I cut you off. Laumea.
No. What about the
he at the Senior Bowl who played some guard. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. And what did you think of that? Do you even remember? Like
work in progress.
Yeah.
He was battling.
There you go.
I mean, it's telling to me that Schneider mentioned that he's huge, he's tough, he's really aggressive. And he said, I can't believe he was still available. And if you pass what John Boyle's saying, this was a guy they had a 5th round pick on, and they picked round 6, pick 179. So you can't hate it. It's more the mentality that he has, I think, and what he brings to the position. And when he talks about his game, it just sounds like a guy who likes hitting people. He said moving the person from point A to point B is the most fun, we've got to move grown men, and they're not going to let us. So I feel like I don't care, and I'm willing to do my job. I want to finish. So
Yeah, there you go.
basically like a fine. He's played a lot of games as well, consecutive starts. I know in his report from Dane Brugler it mentions maybe some concussions, which might have been why he was still available, but he's got a lot of consecutive starts.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that availability thing for the line, which they're clearly banging on about if you look at their free agency additions as well.
Yeah. He as a tackle, he sets, I'm watching him right now. He sets with like a lot of knee bend, and he's already 6'4". Like that definitely translates to being a good leverage oriented player, building your house inside. I'm curious to see if the coaching staff can harness that. It'd be cool to see if he could actually push Bradford opposite Haynes, and see if he can make a living out there, because that'd be pretty good if they got 2 starting guards out of this class.
Oh, it'd be incredible.
Yeah,
it really would.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, while he didn't do much athletic testing, his arms are almost 33 inches, like they basically are. So he's got that kind of length as well to play on the inside. So yeah, I'd give this a B, just a solid B, given it's the 6th round.
Same.
I think he brings that nasty to the run game, and I mean a lot of his highlights, they're pulls and they're pancakes and they're being violent.
Right.
You'd give it what? Sorry, Griff?
I'd give it a B as well.
Excellent. Right. Now, DJ James, the corner out of Auburn.
Yeah. James is interesting.
This is cool, man. Because live on the draft stream, I was trying to watch Pritchett at the Senior Bowl, and I was like, "Oh, here's an Auburn helmet. This will be him." And I was like, "Whoa, this guy's unlocked his hips nice there, and he's gone 2-1 without arms, and he's like connected with his outside arm, but he's managed to get that off with the outside release, unlock his hips by stepping back with his inside foot, reset, and then get his right hand on as he transitions with the outside release. Like, this guy's a player. This Pritchett's good." And then I'm like, hang on, he's not number 4, he's number 1. That's not him. And then they go and draft another Auburn corner, and I'm like, is that number 4 from the Senior Bowl? And it is. So DJ James, technique-wise, I'm like, this guy has something that I didn't necessarily see with Pritchett. Now, he's 175 pounds. His testing was pretty poor, but like on tape, the move, I don't know what, he must have fallen over in his 3-cone, or he just didn't practice it, because he is not a 7'2" 3-cone guy.
No. I don't know if I'm using the right words to describe what I see, but it seems like his feet are always like underneath him, like underneath his frame.
Yeah, he's within his cylinder, right? He's always within his frame. He's not lunging, he's not overstepping, he's got good individual feet, and he's able to bring his feet with his movements,
Yeah, and he can tackle too. Like, he can actually tackle. And that makes you think about nickel. Like, you'd like to have more than one nickel, one for cover one reasons, right? But then also, if he can actually factor in the nickel rotation for zone stuff, that can keep Devin outside when you want to keep him outside.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and don't forget, the Baltimore Ravens, they've just brought him back on a 2-year deal, but they had Arthur Mollett. Like, he gets overlooked because obviously how prominent Carl Hamilton was in that defense. Right. But Mollett, he started 2 games, I think, when Hamilton was out. But Mollett's only 5'9", 190. Like, there's certainly room, and he only ran a 4.62 second 40, and a 7.12 second 3-cone. He didn't test well, but there's room for that scrappy, anticipatory slot corner. He featured in 14 games with 3 starts last season. So there's always a need for that pure nickel corner type. And I really like James. The only problem, his ball skills, at least at the Senior Bowl, were abysmal. Like, he couldn't catch cold. And also there were times where he's going for the undercut, and it's like, that's great, but you could have had a pick there or played the ball a bit better there. So then it's like, is he just going to be in good position and the ball doesn't get thrown because of the good position, or does he start getting picked on and he straight up can't play the ball well, and then it becomes a problem. But
Yeah.
we'll see. That's obviously what he needs to work on, really. I can't when you look at his agility testing, that just makes me really kind of skeptical about that whole drill. I mean, I've been skeptical about the 3-cone anyway, but when you look at that, it's like, what's the point? Like, what are we doing here? We probably need a better way to test this.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a 6th round picks. I'll give it a B+, but I'm really wanting to. I just liked what I saw. It's cool as well because he was the guy. I thought 175 pounds was too light, but I know they didn't mention Auburn's scheme as being a reason really for drafting these guys, but I maybe their technique was just the way they're playing. Like the Jalen Simpson safety guy, who's another really light guy. Him and James, the way they were playing, they look good. Majombo, I said 175 for DJ James.
Simpson's a good player. I'm surprised he was like an afterthought. But yeah, so like, you said like his 3-cone, like he can drive on dig routes. He can close the distance. He can play over the top of them or even get underneath them. I don't know. He's a good player. So
there you go. Right, and then finally, and to me, this is probably like priority free agency for them. Now, the only reason I say that, so John Boyle in his article said, with a few picks remaining until the Seahawks' final pick, there are still a couple players sticking out on the draft board with 5th round grades. Now, if you look, it could be that their eventual 6th round and final pick, the 8th pick, was a 5th round graded player, but I'm not so sure. If you look at where Seattle picked in this draft right now, Nathaniel Watson went the pick before Seattle. Whether they'd have taken another linebacker out of Mississippi State, we don't know. Then there's some like other names, I guess. Shocker. Ryan Watts from Pittsburgh, maybe. I don't know, but triple dipping at corner wouldn't have been a thing. But anyway, they ended up with Michael Jarrell, so maybe he was a 5th round graded player. Maybe they actually just said, no, we've missed out on our last 5th round players. We've managed to get 2 5th round graded players in the 6th round, so that's great. And Jarrell was the 3rd offensive lineman, so you can say what you want about the physicality there. But this seems, Griff, more like I don't know if you've managed to get Finley D2 type tape, but this seems more like a athletic type project where he goes to Ohio State's Pro Day. He tests the 114th most athletic offensive guard per Kent Lee Platt's relative athletic score. He has almost 34-inch long arms. He jumps 32.5 inches vertically at 309 pounds, and he runs a 4.94 second 40 with a 1.69 second 10-yard split at that size, which, okay. So
yeah, I don't have any takes on him, unfortunately, but something to watch for.
Yeah, great analysis there, Griff.
Bang, yeah.
Bang.
I give that analysis a B.
His school rushed for 177 rushing yards a game, and Jarrell highlighted, we want to open up holes, move bodies, be a moving company, be professional movers out there. So, again, physicality, great stuff. Schneider saying they wanted tone setters from their offensive line group, and that's what he feels they got. How offensive line needs to be nasty, and McDonald's saying that's where the game starts up front, and the style of play, we want to be physical, we want to be imposing, we want to create any lines of scrimmage. I think you're seeing investment in that. So there you go. We want to play a style of play that no one wants to play. That's what we're aiming for. That's our standard of how we play football. So there you go. Physical, tough Seattle. That's what's going to happen. Great. So what would you give Jarrell then? Come on, you got to grade it. You got to grade Jarrell before you do your thing.
I give it a C+ because D2 player, but an athlete, and why not?
Was Antonio Brown a D2 player?
Was he? I think he transferred from one. I
Right.
think that was
That's right. He did transfer, yeah. Because he was at Western Michigan, right?
Central Michigan.
Oh, of course. Apologies, Chipper was.
See, Matty, if I was starting a football team, my whole thing would be we're going to be a tough football team. And no one will see that coming.
Right. My thing would be we're going to be soft as doo-doo.
Soft is malleable. Malleable is adaptable.
Yep. Pliable. No, you don't want to be pliable. Anyhow, so that was a pretty comprehensive draft grades. I think it averages out to like a B/B plus, right? Depending on what your pick value is. And we agreed on every single grade. We went A, D, and then the rest of the ones you can post in the comments, guys.
Yep.
Chat.
Dang.
I think it averages out B, right? B plus.
Yeah,
B.
I think it's. I feel like we should weigh the first two grades a little higher. So
Right.
Make it a B plus. I feel like this is a B plus from John Schneider.
Well. Now that Pete Carroll's gone, John Schneider can finally do his drafts.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, bang. It's good.
Chat, you got any questions or should we get out of here?
We should get out of here.
Okay, right. Griff, any closing wisdom, thoughts?
Maddie, you need to watch more films.
Okay.
Why haven't you seen Children of Men? Why haven't you seen Master and Commander?
I'm trying to write an article.
Watch movies, procrastinate.
I'm already good enough at procrastinating. Did the draft seem different, says Cameron? No, other than the linebacker pick. The draft seemed like a continuation of last 3 years in terms of Schneider just not getting too cute.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, it's easy not to get cute when you're drafting in the top 20 so frequently. Honestly, I think John Schneider is a good GM when he's drafting, a good scout when he's drafting in the top half of every draft.
Right.
His track record is great.
He was the middle half, Griff.
Middle half, but but go look at all of his draft picks.
Yeah, like Bruce Irvin.
Bruce Irvin is the worst draft pick he's taken in the top 20. Think about that. Earl Thomas.
Where did Carp go?
Late 20s.
Okay.
Russell Okung, Earl Thomas, Devin Witherspoon, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Byron Murphy, Bruce Irvin.
Not too shabby.
I mean, I trust him with high draft capital. Yeah, whatever.
Right. Okay, check out Griff on Twitter if you haven't, at CMikeSpinMove. Follow me at Matty F. Brown. Follow the pod at Seattle Overload. Please share the podcast with people. Give us a 5-star review. Check us out on your podcast app just to boost the pod. We want to keep growing. We want to keep doing this. We'll keep doing it anyway. That's the thing. Thank you so much. Good to be back. We'll be back hopefully tomorrow with a look at some of the mini camp stuff, press conferences, takes, assessment, etc., etc.
Okay. Bye. Hit it.